don't want to say what I want to say about Peter Obi, but I'm just joking. That's a big joke. So thank you so much, guys, and for support, and thank you so much. I want to say big thanks to our speaker, um, Linda Obi. I want to say big thank you for accepting our invitation. So she'll be speaking on leadership that builds stronger businesses in Africa. Without wasting too much of our time, I'm just going to let her take the floor, and then we'll begin the section. Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are streaming from. My name is Linda Obi. I come to the spirit working across my business particularly trying to I said that to you to think about traditional businesses that has built, products that are category leaders. You'll pretty much find me at the forefront of that. And then think about businesses that have leveraged and is still leveraging technology to scale. Um, you will see me pretty much also at the forefront of that. I'm best known for my work in technology. Um, Currently transitioned out of my role as CEO of AfriHealth, but now stepped into a bigger shoe, which is now bringing all my 25 years experience to fore, and pretty much just providing consultative methods to small, medium, and large businesses in Nigeria and, by implication, outside of Nigeria within the continent. It's a privilege to be here today, speaking about something really close to my heart. Leadership that builds strong businesses in Africa is one conversation that I think to be had. Leadership, in its sense, is a complex topic. Many approach it from different levels, but I'm going to try to synthesize it. I do think that is not talent. We are not ideas. What often lack is the support, and most importantly, the kind of leadership that doesn't just chase profit but builds the advocate of this, is asking for revenue, asking for profit. I think that what is most important at the heart of whatever leadership should be building a legacy business. I also think that true leadership in our context should be about power, right? I think it should be about partnership. It's about understanding the terrains. It's complex, right? Understanding its culture and still showing up to build systems that would outlive us potentially. In the last 5 years, I have worked across sectors like FMCG, fintech, agtech, health tech, and one thing remains consistent, and which is businesses don't scale because of the product alone. Right? Businesses scale because of the people. So because of leadership that is clear and more deep in this intelligence, right? And that's when we adapt to push and when to pause. Leadership, the tribe should be that centric lives, right? Building lives that are aligned, motivated, and empowered. Another would be around integrity, managing the very integrity, which is to give a bit of context in a continent where culture is still momentum, right? Trust becomes current, and that comes with stellar leadership. Finally, that is visionary, right? That is not just solve today's problems, but just design solutions for tomorrow. We can That's the kind of leadership that I believe in, and that's the kind of leadership that we must continue to
I can hear you. Okay, so we have a problem. Okay, thank you guys for joining. I mean, my problem. So she's going to join us again. Sorry about the breakout. Okay, so should we join us shortly and then we're going to go on? Okay. Okay, you're welcome back. So we're welcome back. We have our speaker back here again.
Okay.
Okay,
So sorry, the network is a bit shaky.
I understand. I understand. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
So I wanted to ask a question. I wanted to ask a question before we go on.
Yeah, please go
Can I
ahead.
ask? Okay, good. So I mean, I went through your profile, and then there was there's a question I wanted to ask about. Okay, let me see. Good. What key lessons from your work at Technology Africa can you can guide leaders that are seeking growth, basically? What's one lesson you basically learned that can actually guide leaders that are seeking growth?
Okay, so I mean, it's a number of things, but from the top of my head, I would say rest it on 5 levels, right? Number one is you need to stay adaptable, right? Markets
Mm,
evolve rapidly and rigidity can be fatal. Another would be you need to invest in community. We built Economy Africa by understanding the values of empowering people before monetizing them, yeah? And then I would also say leverage technology, particularly in Africa, where leapfrogging traditional models is often the quickest path to progress. You need a lot of technological optimization and integration to actually, create a pathway to leapfrogging. And then the fourth one would be think beyond borders. Why Nigeria is greater or is great, a great testing ground. Scalability often requires a Pan-African mindset. So think outside the box, think outside the shores of Nigeria, and think about the continent as a whole. We have 54 other unique opportunities waiting for you, and this will be 54 other countries. I was reading a book by Achaleke, and she said, and he was saying that Africa is not just one market, but 54 different markets, and it just simply means that with the 54 different countries that exist within the continent lies 54 unique opportunities, right? One market cannot be the same, but can be similar. And then you need to also prioritize monetization early. A strong business model should drive both impact and profitability. And I think that's how I'll answer that question.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. So you made mention of something when you're talking about leadership that builds stronger businesses in Africa. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was around what steps, I mean, you've had experience working with different set of people and different organizations and leaders globally. What steps what steps can aspiring leaders take to secure partnership and funding, especially in West Africa? There's a big problem with when it comes to partnership and then funding, especially for entrepreneurs that really want to scale up.
Okay, so I think for steps for aspiring entrepreneurs, I would say you want to build credibility. Even build it before you need it, right? You want to be consistent, you want to be visible and in networking. Another would be you want to also articulate your value proposition really early. investors and partners want to know exactly what problems you're solving, right? Another would be leverage strategic storytelling. It's a no-brainer. You want to show both your progress and potential with metrics, right? But wrap it up with a
Mm.
compelling narrative. Don't be boring. And then I think one other thing that should work would be identifying mutual benefits between your potential partner. So not all partnerships would give you money, right? I used to tell my team that there's two kinds of partnerships. You have the partnerships that you can commercialize. So you have partnership, you can look at that you're just an affiliate partner, right? This is somebody who affiliating with that brand gives your brand, social ability. So benefits, right? When to give
Wow,
are you there?
thank you so much. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much. I don't, there was something I wanted to ask about the point you just made, which is about storytelling. And I think, when we're in a time where sometimes I don't want to say probably, I'm finding the right word to use. Should storytelling be authentic? Should the story be authentic, or the individuals telling the story should be authentic?
So I think originality wins every time, right? And you can pretty much see you can see that in some of the founders that have raised the biggest rounds. Now, while a lot of people say you need to spin a level of a good degree of storytelling and just craft a narrative that is compelling, I do subscribe to it being authentic. Um, if you're not being authentic, then I think you should leave it to the marketers, really, who will do a good job of actually spinning something that becomes now authentic. So if I'm to give a very fair and honest question or answer to that question, I would say yes, storytelling should be authentic, right? Because at the end of the day, people buy for two reasons, right? It's either that you know they can relate with what the story you're telling and they are buying because of the story you're telling, or you have the best marketers that can sell water to a well, so they have spin that narrative in such a way that it is difficult to resist. You're showing them beyond you're showing them beyond the emotional side, beyond the relatability, right? You are showing them value. So at the heart of the matter, whether storytelling or not, should be some level of value given.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. I mean, this is really nice. This is really nice. So the other question I want to ask is, what leadership traits have helped you, build strong teams, and solve, top challenges in your space and in your field right now?
Hmm. I think the most effective traits have been three things, right? For me, speaking from experience, one would be resilience, the other is absolute clarity, and then resting on those two would be empathy. So, resilience in the sense that um, building across multiple sectors like FMCG, fintech, agri-tech, and health tech requires a good degree of perseverance, right? Because setbacks are part of the game, right? You get no's, you get setbacks, things would happen. But at the heart of that matter, you must stay resilient. The second would be clarity. Clarity because your team needs a clear vision to follow, especially when tackling ambitious projects. And then the last would be empathy. And empathy because understanding the personal and professional motivations of your team members ensures alignment and loyalty. So I make a point to lead with transparency and I create a culture where everyone feels heard and valued. And I think if I'm going to start, if I'm going to pass it on to another leader, I'm going to say these are some of the physical traits that help you build and a team. It.
So much. Thank you so much. And I think I want to ask very realistic questions, and I feel a lot of West Africans actually going through this.
Mhm.
The topic is leadership that builds stronger business, and uh, there's politics. There's really politics, in business. I mean, there's politics every field you find yourself. And in your experience, what would you advise people, young people or leaders globally? What would you advise young people on the subject of politics, playing politics in business, or playing politics in every field you find yourself in?
Hmm. That's an interesting. That's an interesting question. But the truth remains that there is politics everywhere. I'm sure you must have heard the word office politics, and so it is really answered. And if you want, it's going to be very. I mean, I would say that really without understanding it is and you're just trying to yourself, align on that is very part. So, and I would say what about the organization first to official coming to us. I want to I want to do. I want to know shots. Who's I want who's who at the end of the or have the upper you need the agreement. Need good degree able to and you need support good defense. And I know this I'm a woman and there's this bias around so because me I like right like with its partner like because you need a stupid degree of so yes we must play politics. Play politics but there's at politics you must play politics understanding our values understanding what the boundaries I mean set boundaries that okay bad as bad if you reach here right and just standing for something because if you stand for everything you will fall. I mean if you stand for everything you will fall for not how they put it. I think if you stand for everything you fall for not or you stand for you fall for nothing or fall for everything. So just understanding what your boundaries are, understanding what is morally correct, getting clarity on exactly the policies that you want to push, look for people that help you to actually to align vision with them. And that is politics. It's politics.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so we have about 2 or 3 questions first. I mean, this is quite very inspiring because we still have time, and then we've been able to really cover a lot within a short period of time. So I want to ask another question. I think this is a major problem in Africa. I've had to speak to other like West African countries, and other even outside East African countries in Kenya and other countries. And there's something always common, which is how bosses and leaders, I mean leaders, organizational leadership here, where how they treat their subordinates. How do you think that people in high leadership organizational level should treat subordinates? I mean, especially when you're angry, especially when you're trying to tell them to do something and they're not really getting it. How do you think that leaders should treat subordinates?
So I don't think that there is any specific way that subordinates should be treated other than being treating them like human beings, right? And then treating them like adults that they are, right? But then in managing people, I've come to realize that you need a set of rules for people to play by, right? You need a set of rules to govern people. If you go back to, I'm a Christian, so I would make reference to the story in the Bible where Moses was called to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, right? And at some point there was a level of rebellion. Why? Because there was no rules, there was no leader, there was nothing. Leadership. There's a leader because you want somebody who is, who can inspire change to actually lead people. Somebody who is influential to lead people. But in leading people, you need to have set rules that guide them. So for me, what I've always done and what I've worked would be you have standard operational processes which are rules that binds people, You have policy books, which is a document that comes from HR on, the way we behave here. You have culture books, which tells you when to actually clock in, when to clock out, what performance means. You have job descriptions, which tells you what the expectation from you is from this job that we've given you. We have key performance metrics, which measures how efficient, how effectively you are delivering on your job and gives feedback. So it's just putting rules and regulations here and there across departments, that binds, the people and just regulates behavior. Otherwise, you have people who are actual grown-ups behaving like children, because at the end of the day, there is no set rule that binds them. Do you understand? So for me, it would be so that you can eliminate the whole idea of this is how to treat people. There is a standard way of treating everybody. From the CEO to the cleaner is bound by a policy book, but from the CEO to the cleaner is bound by a culture book. We all know when exactly we are clocking in and clocking out. We know what our job descriptions are. We know what is acceptable. We know what performance would mean for me, because from when I was onboarded, I was giving my job description and I was also giving a clear KPI to see that month on month, these are the expectations from me. So I think that's one way I will answer that question.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this is really nice. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Okay, so we have about two more questions or three more questions. And the other one, I think, I mean, this is very important in business, and probably it's not, I mean, this is out of the questions that you meant to probably answer, but what do you think about morality in business? Do you think that people should really, have morals when it comes to building businesses? I mean, stronger business in Africa. You think really, I mean, like, let's put, let's put, I mean, I'm trying to find the way it is really in Africa, in West Africa, where people, I mean, when people see human beings, where, a lot of businesses today that are grown, some do see human beings as a means to an end. They don't really see them as like, they don't really see people like, oh, I mean, these people are really what is driving the company. This is what is really driving the business. So do you think morality really is important when it comes to building stronger business in Africa? I mean, very realistic questions, very realistic, very realistic.
Hmm. So um, in all fairness, you can't build anything without a level of morality, right? You can't. So it will now depend on what you're asking, right? Morality does not mean that I cannot be tough when I need to be tough. Morality does not mean I cannot make very, very hard decisions that needs to be made, right? In fact, hard decisions are seriously bordering on morality, and which is why I say that before I talk about, okay, is this even morally correct, right? You have things that are politically acceptable and politically not acceptable, right? When you begin to actually drive clarity, or gain clarity on what is politically correct, right? I think on the back of that, you can also to pick around morally correct. So I wish there was more an example to use in actually backing some of my answers, especially around morality. But I do feel like what is wrong, what is right, right? And sometimes what is wrong among the vast people. What is bad amongst, I mean, we all know that murder is bad, right? Murder is bad, whether you're Muslim, Christian, atheist, whatever, right? So yes, a good degree of morality should apply in doing business. And it also shows up in the way you handle people, right? Which is why human resources have now changed from being called human resources to actual people operations, because there's a human side to everybody, right? You want to also make sure the human side is nurtured, right? So that the person actually optimizes on expectations. So yeah, a good degree of morality wins all the time.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. So we have two more questions and then we're good to go. I mean, we're talking about business, and I think that the future of business is really evolving. And and I think that your field basically you're into healthcare and technology. So, questions: how do you see healthcare and technology, shaping new business models, across West Africa and Africa as a whole?
It's the future. It's the
Hmm.
future. If we didn't learn anything from COVID, right? COVID showed us that technology is an equalizer. Technology is an equalizer. Technology is an enabler, right? It was only by means of technology that people could go to work and work from home, right? It was only by means of technology that some people could continue to operate. Now, it just makes sense, especially as we are currently pushing through to, advanced models around, new age technology. 2 years ago, it was blockchain this, blockchain that, NFT this, NFT that, metaverse this, metaverse that. Fast forward to 2025, there's the whole talk about artificial intelligence and all the different models that are coming on the back of that, generative AI, learning models, different things. So health technology is as health technology, if we have to decouple both words, right? You have health, then you have technology. It's a no-brainer to say that if you're going to accelerate models, if you're going to accelerate growth within this particular industry, it just makes sense to leverage technology. And what is that doing, right? With technology, I can sit here and have a consultation with a specialist doctor all the way in India, right? And not just having a phone conversation or having a video conversation. The doctor can actually check my pulse. The doctor can actually run some diagnosis by leveraging right? I can have my own rig on, and it sends my vital signs to the doctor that is all the way abroad, overseas, right? So that is the promise that technology integrated into health is giving. And I feel like in the next coming years, 5 years to be precise, um, the health technology or the healthcare space is going to experience the revolution that the financial space is currently, experiencing. With fintech, we can see that a lot of people are counted in, a lot of people don't have OPA accounts. These are people who don't have accounts, bank accounts to begin with. In the same vein, there are people who don't even have the means or access to um, premium healthcare, and they can leverage technology to do so. So maybe what we need to do would be provide infrastructure that powers, some of this technology so that, quality healthcare is accessible to everyone.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, the last question before, okay, the second to the last second question before we let you go, and is how would you advise, young leaders to balance profits with social impact across Africa? And I think it's a very important topic. For me as an individual in the university, I love the idea of making money. I also love the idea of having to engage in social, activities to help people get better and all that. So how would you, balance, how would you advise leaders to really balance that?
Well, I feel like at the heart of every business really is revenue, right? With a decent revenue, right, comes profit, right? If you're able to up your revenue to a point where you have optimized on the cost of actual setup, you have optimized on, you've gotten all of that back and then some. Um, that's what businesses are set up for, right? Revenue. Now, balancing social impact and revenue, or balancing social impact and profits. That's an interesting question because when you say social impact, you are building for the greater good. I mean, you are building for a collective more it's going to be um, not maybe but and those that impact that the government and not having making it
Wow.
from that you can hear me. Can you hear me? Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's it's
Okay.
breaking. But yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. Look at it. I have
I can hear you
where
actually.
it's so okay. So social it is just ensuring that at the end of the day, the cost
Mm,
the cost in itself, right, is not impaired because you're trying to improve social impact for profit fee against not fit and all of it. Whether you're building around, social impact, whether you're building around, you need
mm,
a good degree of profit. It means that at the end of the day, your startup or your whatever, the company needs to be resting on very solid the startup hygiene needs to be pristine, and there needs to be a clear route to revenutization. And with a clear route to revenutization, then you see profits. So yeah, I don't think that because it is a social venture, that means it should be lacking profits. Do you
mm,
understand? So yeah, that's the- I would and I as well impact to the clear up your defined profit and it becomes yeah designing fact again for you are like look more with a lot of that for
mm,
the other than compared to the stability are interconflicting. You want to elaborate as analysis, right? Incentive aligned to leverage and at point profitability. You need to make KPIs
mm,
for each can where right maybe I see your and we adjust it and need so and it's needed. Would be required but very many offers to you initial return. You just to your patient with yeah, that's how I answer that question.
wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've come to the end of the section, and then there's the last question we want to ask you before we let you go. And before I'm going to ask the question, I want to say a big thank you for the fact that you're able to give honest answers to these questions, and the fact that you're really pouring out your experience. And I want to say thank you for everyone who's joining us as well too on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So the last question we want to ask you is you've had a whole lot of experience with people, you've led leaders, you've led teams and all that. What's something you want, you know, leaders should know, or something you know right now that you want someone to know that will probably make their life better, probably make their career or business life, better? What's something, what knowledge, what wisdom you probably have found out, your experience and you're dealing with different people and you want someone to know about it?
Honestly, I would say it and that's the and right starting anything is hard and the building is hard, scaling is hard. But when you get hands of hard of it better. So I would say again there build purpose, build for impact, foundation so that you're so building business that lasts, right? My even building empire would be identified um, to just break quick go into business of that is fine begin to yield you need to be able to so some level of resistance level of something yes so
I can't really hear you like that, but probably could put it in few
can
words,
you
in
hear
few
me
seconds, in about, yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you now. So let's say probably in few seconds,
okay
probably just like round it up in few seconds or probably a minute. Yeah.
so I was saying that my message to leaders would be it gets hard then it gets better, right? You need a good degree of stay power, right? Building is hard, scaling is hard, but it gets better. The business that out fancy. Something that you probably less than 5 years to be stay with
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. I want to say a very big thank you for accepting to speak and then for sharing this great insight on this topic. And we hope that one day we'll probably have a physical session with you. So I want to say everyone, thanks so much for joining. Also want to thank Ms. Linda for as well joining us also and for accepting our invitation. I hope one day probably have a physical meeting where we have a come around as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining as well too.
no, no.